30 years ago, the Royal Commission that I was part of made recommendations to the Parliament, 339 recommendations. That commission had been set up by the Hawke government, and at that time there were 99 deaths that we were concerned about in this nation to effect a national Royal Commission. Now we've got over 400 deaths since that Royal Commission, and we have 30 years that have passed that have not addressed the underlying issues that give rise to people being taken into custody and consequently dying in custody. So the social factors of health, housing, education, employment and the legal factors surrounding those have not been addressed in a manner to relieve this awful blight on this nation's history. And there's a continuing pattern, there's a systemic pattern here which I'd appeal to the government and this new Butte system that the minister's believing is going to find the answers to it, this new Federation Reform Council, that this group of people actually look at the systemic approaches that take place. First Nations people are likely to come to the attention of police. We know that. The First Nations people who come to the attention of the police are likely to be arrested and charged. We know that. First Nations people who come to the attention of the police will be charged, but they will also be sent to court. And when they go to court, what happens? They'll be sent to jail. Now this is a pattern, this is a paradigm that is systematic, it's systemic, it's institutionalised. And if you look at this from the point of view from the First Nations point of view, this is about the subjugation of the First Nations people. This is not about enlightened policy, this is about subjugating the First Nations people. You correlate that to the number of people who have been taken away, the number of kids, who will be 30,000 kids in out-of-home care. And you come up with it's going to take time, it's complicated, and it's really difficult. Well, it's not. Address the underlying issues, health, housing, education, employment, and work with First Nations peoples through the COAG system, or through the new system of the Reform Council, whatever it is, to actually set some targets, as Senator Wong had asked, around these things for incarceration rates and for the diminishment of removing kids from custody or being removed from their homes and put into custody in other families, which ultimately will lead to the adoption out of these kids. And I remind the government that the Bringing Them Home report will analyse the policies and practices that pertain to those heinous practices, bordered on genocide. So I ask you sincerely to make this a priority, a top priority. For too long, nice words, good intentions, but the lack of action and commitment has not seen a reduction to the custodies or the deaths in custodies. It's seen an escalation in the social indicators that diminish First Nations people and diminish us as a nation. It diminishes us as a nation because we are incapable of dealing with it. So I ask the government to sincerely put to practice the best intentions into commitments and into real working and commitments with the First Nations peoples, and get real agreements with the states. And don't pussyfoot around with the states, say, oh, it's the state's responsibility. Well, we know this. You've been capable of finding ways of dealing with this. Now is the time to stop the rot of First Nations dying in custody, being over-imprisoned, and their children being put into out-of-care home. Thank you.